Someone disrespects you. Maybe it's subtle, a dismissive comment, a public jab, a deliberate exclusion, or maybe it's direct, an insult to your face, a challenge to your authority, a threat to your position. And in that moment, every cell in your body screams one thing: fight back, defend yourself, put them in their place, show them they can't treat you like that, prove your worth, reestablish your status. And that impulse, that immediate need to react, that's exactly what destroys you. Because Francis Bacon understood something that most people never learn. When someone disrespects you, they're not just attacking your reputation or your ego. They're setting a trap. They're baiting you into a reaction that will make you look worse than their original disrespect ever could. They want you emotional. They want you defensive. They want you to lose composure. Because the moment you do, you've handed them exactly what they wanted. Proof that they got to you. Evidence that you're vulnerable. Confirmation that their disrespect had power over you. Bacon spent decades navigating the most vicious political environment in history. The Elizabethan court, where a single wrong move could mean exile or execution. Where everyone was looking for weakness to exploit. Where disrespect was a daily weapon used to test, to probe, to destroy. And he didn't just survive. He thrived. He rose to the highest positions of power. Not because he was the best at fighting back, but because he was the best at not fighting in ways that damaged him. This is not about turning the other cheek. This is not about being passive or weak. This is about understanding the game being played when someone disrespects you and responding in ways that actually increase your power rather than diminish it. So let's break down exactly what Francis Bacon would tell you to do when someone disrespects you. First, recognize what's actually happening. When someone disrespects you, especially publicly, they're not just expressing their opinion of you. They're making a power move. They're attempting to lower your status in the eyes of others. They're testing whether you can be pushed. They're seeing if they can make you react emotionally. Because if they can, you've just revealed weakness. You've shown that their words have power over your emotional state. And once people know they can affect you, they own a piece of you. Bacon's first principle was this: never mistake disrespect for truth. Just because someone says something disrespectful about you doesn't mean it's accurate, doesn't mean it matters, doesn't mean it requires response. Most disrespect says far more about the person delivering it than it does about you. It reveals their insecurity, their need to diminish others to feel significant, their inability to compete on merit, so they compete through attacks on character. Understanding this changes everything. You stop taking disrespect personally. You start seeing it as information. Information about who's threatened by you. Information about who's insecure enough to need to attack. Information about who's playing games instead of focusing on their own elevation. And once you see it as information rather than attack, your response changes completely. Second, do nothing immediately. This is where most people fail. The moment they're disrespected, they react. They fire back. They defend. They escalate. And even if their response is clever, even if their comeback is devastating, they've still lost. Because they've demonstrated that the disrespect mattered enough to require immediate response. They've shown that it got under their skin. They've proven that they can be baited. Bacon's rule was absolute. Never respond to disrespect in the moment. Never. The immediate response is always emotional, always reactive, always coming from a place of ego rather than strategy. And emotional responses, no matter how justified they feel, almost always damage you more than the original disrespect. So what do you do instead? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Not a flinch, not a change in expression, not a word. You hear the disrespect, you register it, and you continue exactly as you were, as if nothing happened. As if the words were so meaningless they didn't even register on your radar. This does something profound to the person who disrespected you. They expect a reaction. They're waiting for it. When it doesn't come, they're thrown off balance. They start questioning themselves. Did he not hear me? Did it not land? Is he so far above this that it didn't even matter? And that uncertainty, that's when you've already won the first round without saying a word. Third, let others react for you. Here's what Bacon understood that most people miss. When you're disrespected publicly and you don't react, something interesting happens. Other people start to react on your behalf. They see the disrespect. They see your calm. And the contrast makes the disrespectful person look bad, not you. People will say things like, "That was uncalled for." Why would he say that? He didn't even respond, and you're still going at him. Without you defending yourself, without you saying a word, the crowd starts to turn against your attacker. Because your silence makes their disrespect look like exactly what it is, an unprovoked attack by someone who seems emotional and petty against someone who appears calm and unbothered. This is strategic genius. You're getting the benefit of defense without having to defend yourself. You're getting social support without asking for it. You're maintaining your composure while others do the work of making your attacker look foolish. And all you did was stay still. Bacon used this constantly. When attacked in court, he would often remain silent, allowing other members of the court to speak on his behalf. They would defend him because his calm in the face of attack made him seem dignified while his attackers seemed desperate. He orchestrated his own defense without appearing to need one. Fourth, when you do respond, do it strategically. Not reacting immediately doesn't mean never responding. It means choosing when, how, and whether to respond based on strategy rather than emotion. Bacon was meticulous about this. He would wait, sometimes hours, sometimes days, sometimes weeks, until he found the perfect moment and the perfect method to address disrespect in a way that elevated him rather than diminished him. Here's the framework. Ask yourself 3 questions before responding to any disrespect. Does this disrespect actually affect my position or reputation in meaningful ways? If no, ignore it completely. Most disrespect is noise that will be forgotten by tomorrow. Responding to it only extends its lifespan and makes it seem more significant than it is. Will responding increase my power or just satisfy my ego? If it's only about ego, don't do it. Ego satisfaction is expensive. It costs you composure, status, and often respect. Strategic response increases your position. Emotional response decreases it. What's the response that makes me look most powerful while making them look most weak? This is the key question. The best response is the one that flips the power dynamic. That makes your attacker look emotional, bitter, or obsessed, while you look calm, secure, and above it all. Fifth, use the disrespect against them. Here's where Bacon got truly dark. He didn't just deflect disrespect. He weaponized it. He found ways to use the disrespect as evidence of his attacker's weakness rather than his own. He turned their attack into their exposure. Let's say someone publicly calls you arrogant or says you think you're better than everyone. The weak response is to deny it, to explain how you're actually humble, to list all the ways you're not arrogant. That's defense. That's playing their game. The Bacon response. You smile slightly, you pause, and then you say something like, "Interesting that confidence makes some people so uncomfortable." What just happened? You didn't deny the accusation. You reframed it. You took arrogant and repositioned it as confident. And you made their discomfort with your confidence look like their insecurity, not your flaw. Now they're the one who looks weak. They're the one who seems threatened. They're the one scrambling to explain why they're not just jealous or insecure. This is advanced play. You're using their own attack as a mirror to reflect their psychology back at them. And you're doing it so smoothly that they don't even realize they've been reversed until it's too late. Sixth, make them irrelevant through success. Bacon understood the ultimate response to disrespect. Not words, not comebacks, not explanations. Success. Achieving what they said you couldn't. Becoming what they said you'd never be. Rising to levels they can't reach. That's the response that truly destroys disrespect. Because here's the brutal truth. People who matter don't disrespect you. They compete with you. They challenge you. They push you. But they don't resort to petty disrespect. Only people who can't compete on merit resort to attacking character. Only people who feel threatened need to diminish others. Only people who recognize they're losing need to play dirty. So when someone disrespects you, Bacon would ask, do they matter? Are they someone whose opinion actually affects your trajectory, Are they someone with power over your outcomes? Are they someone whose respect would genuinely be valuable? If the answer is no, then their disrespect is just noise from irrelevant sources. And the best response to noise is to let your results speak while you stay focused on elevation. Think about this practically. Someone at your level or below disrespects you. You could spend time and energy responding, or you could spend that same time and energy getting so far ahead of them that their disrespect becomes laughable. In 5 years, when your level's above them, their disrespect won't matter. It will be a footnote. A moment where someone who couldn't compete tried to bring you down through words because they couldn't compete through achievement. 7th, document but don't broadcast. Here's a tactical move Bacon employed consistently. When someone disrespected him, especially if it was serious, he documented it. He remembered it. He noted who was present. He tracked the pattern. But he didn't broadcast it. He didn't complain about it publicly. He didn't seek sympathy. He just filed it away as information about that person's character and potential future actions. This serves multiple purposes. First, it keeps you from looking like a victim. Nothing destroys your power faster than broadcasting how someone mistreated you. It makes you look weak and vengeful. Second, it gives you information to use strategically later. Maybe that person needs something from you someday. Maybe you're in a position to help or hinder them. Now you know exactly who they are. Third, it prevents you from forgetting who your actual enemies are. Too many people have short memories and get burned repeatedly by the same people. The key is, the documentation is private. You're not posting about it. You're not telling everyone. You're not seeking validation for how wrong they were. You're simply noting reality and letting that information inform your future strategy regarding that person. 8th, elevate your circle. Bacon noticed something crucial. The more he elevated himself and his social circle, the less disrespect he encountered. Why? Because people at higher levels generally don't engage in petty disrespect. They're too focused on their own goals. They're too secure in their own position. They're too aware that disrespecting others makes them look small. Disrespect is most common at lower levels of social and professional hierarchies, where people are insecure, where status is contested, where everyone's jockeying for position and recognition. As you rise, if you rise to the right places, you encounter less of this, because you're surrounding yourself with people who are secure enough not to need to diminish others. So one of the best long-term responses to disrespect is to rise above the level where it's common, to position yourself in circles where people don't engage in it because they're too busy actually achieving things. This doesn't mean you'll never face disrespect at higher levels, but it's less frequent and often more strategic than emotional. 9th, never let them see it affected you. This is critical. Even if disrespect bothers you, even if it hurts, even if you're angry or upset, you never ever let that show to the person who disrespected you or to anyone else in that social sphere. Because the moment they know they got to you, they've won. They've found your button. They've discovered they can affect your emotional state, and they or others will use that knowledge against you again. Bacon was obsessive about this. He cultivated what observers called an inscrutable countenance. People couldn't read him, couldn't tell if their attacks landed, couldn't gauge his emotional state. This made him extremely difficult to manipulate because manipulation requires knowing what affects someone. If you can't tell what gets to them, you can't effectively attack them. In practice, this means controlling your face, your body language, your tone. When disrespected, your expression should remain neutral or mildly amused. Your posture should stay relaxed. Your voice, if you speak, should be calm and measured. You might be seething inside. That's human. But outwardly, you're a wall, unaffected, unbothered, unmoved. This takes practice. It's not natural. Our instinct is to show hurt when hurt, anger when angered. But that instinct, while natural, is strategically foolish. So you train yourself. You practice maintaining composure in small situations so that when big disrespect comes, your calm is automatic. 10th, choose your battles with precision. Not all disrespect is created equal. Some requires response, some doesn't. Bacon was masterful at distinguishing between the two. He ignored 90% of the disrespect that came his way. But the 10% that actually mattered, that actually threatened his position or reputation in ways that couldn't be ignored, he addressed with devastating precision. The framework is this: respond only when the disrespect comes from someone whose opinion actually matters to people you need to influence. If a nobody insults you, who cares? But if someone respected in your field makes false claims about you, that might require strategic response. The disrespect is being repeated or gaining traction. One person saying something false about you is nothing. 10 people believing it is a problem. If you see a lie spreading, sometimes you need to correct it before it becomes accepted truth. Remaining silent would be interpreted as admission. Usually, silence is strength, but sometimes, in certain contexts, silence looks like you can't defend yourself because the accusation is true. When that's the case, strategic response is necessary. But even when you do respond to these situations, the response should be calculated, measured, designed to correct the record while maintaining your dignity. Never emotional, never desperate, never making the disrespect seem more important than it is. 11th, build a reputation that makes disrespect unbelievable. This is the long game Bacon played. He built a reputation over years that made most disrespect against him sound absurd. When you've established yourself as competent, reliable, and valuable, random accusations don't stick. People hear them and think, that doesn't match what I know about him. This is preventative medicine. You're not responding to each instance of disrespect. You're building a body of work and reputation that makes disrespect ineffective before it's even launched. When someone calls you lazy and everyone knows you're the hardest worker in the room, their disrespect doesn't damage you. It damages them by making them look out of touch with reality. Bacon was meticulous about building this reputation. Through his work, through his relationships, through consistent demonstration of value. So when political enemies tried to destroy him with accusations, many of those accusations fell flat because they contradicted what most people had experienced of him directly. 12th, understand the real source. When Bacon was disrespected, he didn't just think about the surface insult. He analyzed the source. Why is this person coming at me? What do they gain? What are they threatened by? What weakness of theirs does this reveal? Because disrespect is rarely about you. It's about them, their fear, their insecurity, their recognition that you have something they want or represent something they're not. When you understand this, disrespect stops being personal and becomes diagnostic. It tells you who's threatened by your rise, who sees you as competition, who's insecure enough to attack rather than compete. This analytical approach removes the emotional sting. Someone insults your intelligence. Instead of feeling hurt, you analyze. They're intellectually insecure and my competence threatens them. Someone mocks your ambition. You recognize they're scared of people who want more because it makes their complacency look bad. The disrespect stops being about your value and becomes about their psychology. Bacon wrote extensively about this in his essays. He noted that envy and insecurity are the parents of most attacks between men, that those secure in themselves rarely feel the need to diminish others. That disrespect is almost always the weapon of the weak against the strong, even if it doesn't feel that way in the moment. Finally, the nuclear option. There are rare situations where someone's disrespect crosses a line that can't be ignored, where their attacks are persistent, damaging, and clearly designed to destroy your reputation or position. In these cases, Bacon had a final move: complete, calculated destruction of their credibility. But this wasn't emotional retaliation. This was strategic demolition. He would wait, gather information, document their inconsistencies, their failures, their hypocrisies, and then, at the perfect moment, usually when they were most vulnerable or most visible, he would expose them completely, not through emotion, not through obvious revenge, but through careful revelation of truths that destroyed their credibility so thoroughly they could never recover. This is the option of last resort, because once you do this, you've made an enemy for life. You've burned a bridge completely, so it should only be used when someone has made themselves your enemy anyway, and their continued attacks genuinely threaten your position. But when necessary, Bacon demonstrated that the measured strategic destruction of an enemy's credibility is far more effective than emotional retaliation ever could be. Here's what all of this adds up to. Francis Bacon's approach to disrespect wasn't about being passive. It wasn't about being weak. It wasn't about letting people walk over you. It was about understanding that immediate emotional response to disrespect almost always damages you more than the disrespect itself. That the appearance of being unbothered is more powerful than any defense. That strategic, calculated response is more effective than reactive retaliation. Most people handle disrespect exactly wrong. They react immediately. They get emotional. They try to defend or retaliate in the moment. And even when they win the immediate exchange, they've still lost. Because they've shown that the disrespect mattered, that it got under their skin, that they can be baited. And once people know that, you've handed them a weapon they'll use against you again and again. Bacon's method requires something most people don't have: discipline. The discipline to stay calm when every instinct screams to react. The discipline to think strategically when emotion wants to take over. The discipline to play the long game when immediate satisfaction is tempting. But that discipline, that's what separates those who rise despite attacks from those who get dragged down by them. Think about the most powerful people you know or know of. When they're disrespected, how do they typically respond? Usually with calm, with strategic silence, with measured words when they do speak, rarely with immediate emotional retaliation. Because they understand what Bacon understood. That power is demonstrated not by how forcefully you respond to disrespect, but by how unbothered you remain in the face of it. The person who can be easily provoked is easy to control. The person who reacts emotionally to every slight is predictable and manipulable. But the person who remains calm, who chooses their responses strategically, who doesn't let disrespect affect their emotional state or their trajectory, that person is dangerous. That person is untouchable. That person is playing at a level most others don't even recognize exists. So the next time someone disrespects you, remember Francis Bacon. Remember that your immediate instinct is probably wrong. That staying calm is more powerful than fighting back. That strategic response beats emotional reaction. That making them irrelevant through your continued rise is the ultimate answer. That letting others defend you is smarter than defending yourself. That their disrespect often reveals their weakness more than any flaw of yours. You don't need to prove yourself to people who disrespect you. You don't need their approval or their respect. You need to stay focused on your trajectory and let your results speak. And years from now, when your level's above where they stayed, their disrespect will be exactly what it always was. A brief moment of noise from someone who couldn't compete, forgotten by everyone, including yourself. That's the Bacon method. Not weakness, not passivity, but strategic, calculated, disciplined power that doesn't waste itself on worthless battles while the war is being won somewhere else entirely.